All right, so today we're diving into something pretty different.
Yeah,
It's
definitely different.
the world of David Zed, also known as Mr. Zed, the robot mime.
Yes,
You sent over some articles about his career,
I did.
and
Fascinating guy.
I gotta say, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
A mime who's also a robot and a comedian.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. How do you even,
Where do you even start with that?
how does someone bridge those worlds?
Right.
And not just bridge them, but find international success?
Yeah, it's a unique journey for sure.
It really is.
I mean, you think about mime, it's often seen as silent and stationary, right?
Sure. Yeah, but still.
And he takes that and transforms it into something dynamic.
Wow. Yeah.
And not just dynamic, but something that's recognized globally. I mean, that's not easy to do.
It's not. And speaking of not easy,
Yeah.
mime, acting, comedy, singing.
Right.
That's not exactly your typical performer's skill set.
It's a lot to balance, definitely.
I mean, that in itself is impressive. But what really stood out to me was how his robot character, Zed,
Yeah.
emerged in the late 70s and found success so quickly.
Interesting time for that.
It was. What do you think it was about those early performances that made them stand out?
Well, picture the late 70s, right? Star Wars had just premiered.
Huge.
It was massive, and it sparked this incredible cultural fascination with robots and sci-fi in general. Now, imagine being a mime working in a mostly silent art form and trying to break through in that kind of landscape. It would take a special kind of creativity to connect with audiences.
Absolutely. And that makes his success at the 1980 San Remo Music Festival even more impressive. I mean, his song R.O.B.O.T. became a hit.
It did.
Was he singing as the robot? Do we know? I have to wonder how that performance even landed.
Right.
Like a mostly silent performer having a musical hit.
It's unexpected, for sure.
Yeah. Especially at such a big event.
Hmm.
And not to mention, he wasn't even Italian.
You're right. The San Remo Music Festival is a huge deal, especially for someone who's not Italian. For him to not just perform there, but to have his song become a hit, that really speaks volumes. It makes you think about how he combined those two things, the mime and the music. Did the robot character translate into the song? Did he find a way to be expressive with his voice while still staying true to the character? Fascinating stuff.
It really is. And that actually brings us to something else you pointed out in your notes.
Oh, yeah.
His show, the Mr. Zed Show,
Yeah.
which started airing in the mid-90s.
Right.
This wasn't just a local act anymore.
No, it was huge.
He was being broadcast internationally.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, it was one of the first shows shot entirely on digital video.
Which, for the time,
It's
wow,
incredibly forward-thinking for the time.
definitely ahead of the curve on that.
I mean, was he always drawn to those technological frontiers? Do we know?
It's hard to say for sure, but there's definitely an interesting parallel there. Zed embracing digital video production early on, much like how podcasts are revolutionizing audio today. And you're right, that global reach in the 90s with satellite TV, that was huge. It meant that a performer could suddenly connect with audiences across continents.
And he was smart to evolve his character for television, too.
Oh, so
Mr. Zed became this comedic, robotic stand-up comedian.
I love that.
Right. I mean, the image of a robot telling jokes.
I know.
It just makes me laugh. And clearly it worked.
It did.
It wasn't long before he was appearing on U.S. and Canadian TV as well.
He was everywhere.
Do we know how he approached adapting his act for television? I mean, it's a very different medium than stage performance.
Yeah, it definitely is. Adapting physical comedy for television is tricky enough, let alone mime. You lose that direct, in-person connection with the audience. Plus, he had to make sure the humor translated across cultures for that international audience. It really is a testament to his talent and awareness that he managed to pull it off.
He even competed on Bring the Funny in 2019.
Really?
I know. A modern comedy show.
Wow, how'd he do?
He made it to the first round.
That's fantastic.
And then he returned as a special guest, and then he appeared on The Tonight Show.
No way.
Yeah. It's amazing.
It really is. Good for him.
What do you think it is about Zed that allowed him to, find a place in such a current format, decades after he first began performing?
That's a great question. I think comedy, as you know, comedy trends are constantly evolving. The fact that Zed could not only keep performing, but find success in a format like Bring the Funny, that suggests a certain timeless quality to his act. Like, he tapped into something universal that continues to resonate across generations and comedic style.
That's a great point.
Right.
It's incredible to see how his career has evolved from silent mime to this international multi-platform entertainer.
Amazing.
It really is. So what do you think?
What about it?
As our listener, What makes this robot character so enduring, even in a world that's, like, totally saturated with technology?
That's an interesting question.
I know. It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. Maybe it's not just about the robot itself.
Okay.
Maybe it's about the human elements that Zed brings to the character, the desire for connection, the exploration of humor. Those are timeless themes.
What a great point. You've given us a lot to think about today.
Of course. Glad we could chat about it.
If you, the listener, want to really see how David Zed brings this character to life,
Oh, yeah, you should.
I encourage you to look up some of his performances. You really get a sense of his mastery of mime and comedic timing when you see him in action.
It's something to see, for sure.
Trust me, it's worth a watch.